I lost my sight at 17. One second I was running down the basketball court, the next I saw nothing but black. A blinding flash, a crash, then silence. Doctors said it was a rare complication. A blood vessel behind my eyes had burst and my vision was gone. Just like that. For weeks I waited for it to come back. I kept waking up every morning thinking maybe today. Maybe I'll open my eyes and see the sunlight again. But every morning was the same endless night. At first I was angry. At life. At God. At myself. I had plans, to go to college, to start my own business, to see the world. Now I couldn't even see my own hands. People tried to comfort me, but their pity felt heavier than blindness itself. Maybe it's for a reason, they said. I didn't want a reason. I wanted my eyes back. For months I locked myself away. I stopped answering calls. I stopped going outside. The sound of laughter from the street made me sick. It reminded me of what I'd lost. Then one night I heard something through the wall. My neighbor, an old man, was listening to an audiobook. A voice filled the silence. The only limits we have are the ones we accept. I froze. Those words hit harder than any medicine ever could. I found myself sitting closer to the wall every night just to hear more. The book was about a blind inventor, someone who built machines that changed lives. I thought, if he can do it, maybe I can too. So I started small. I asked my brother to bring me an old laptop. He thought I was crazy. Dude, you can't even see the screen. I just smiled. I don't need to see it. I just need to learn how it talks. For months I learned to use screen readers, those robotic voices that describe everything on the screen. It was slow. Frustrating. Sometimes I wanted to throw the laptop across the room. But I kept going. One voice in my head was louder than the doubt. You've already survived the dark. Now master it. I began studying coding through audio courses. At first it was just curiosity. Then it became obsession. Every beep, every click, every error message. I memorized it all by sound. My world had no light, but it had rhythm. And I learned to see through that rhythm. One day I built my first prototype, a small voice assistant app that could describe objects using sound. When I tested it on myself, it failed miserably. The AI thought my chair was a dog. But instead of breaking down, I laughed, like really laughed for the first time in years. Because it meant something worked. It tried. And so did I. I started reaching out to others who were blind, asking what they needed most. They all said the same thing: independence. Not pity. Not sympathy. Just the ability to live without needing help all the time. That became my mission. To create tools that gave people like me their freedom back. But I had no money, no investors, no credibility, just a blind kid with a beat-up laptop and an idea. So I applied for every online grant I could find. Rejections piled up like trash in my inbox. Until one day I got an email that changed everything. Congratulations, you've been selected for our Startup Accelerator program. They wanted me to fly to San Francisco. I didn't even have enough for the ticket. So I did something crazy. I performed music on the subway for 2 weeks straight with a sign that read, "Help me build something that helps others see." People started asking questions. Some ignored me. Some smiled. But some, the right ones, listened. By the end of those 2 weeks, I had enough money for the flight. I remember sitting on that plane, feeling the vibration of the engines, thinking, the sound, this is what hope feels like. When I landed, I walked into the accelerator with my cane and my old laptop. Everyone else had fancy suits, shiny presentations, and teams. I had a dream and a voice that could barely stop shaking. But when I told my story, how I lost everything and still found purpose, the room went silent. No pity this time. Just respect. That's when I realized something. I didn't need to see their faces to know they were listening. I could feel it. At the end of the pitch, the lead investor said, "You've got something real. We'll back you." And just like that, my world, the one that had been dark for so long, began to light up again. Not with sight, but with meaning. That was the day I stopped being the kid who lost his eyes, and started becoming the man who would teach the world to see differently. When the funding came through, I didn't celebrate. I sat in silence, listening to the sound of my own heartbeat. Because I knew, this was just the beginning. The accelerator gave me a small workspace and 2 interns. Both of them were fresh out of college, full of energy, and, at first, full of doubt. They didn't know how to act around a blind founder. They spoke slowly, carefully, like I might break if they said the wrong word. I stopped that quick. "Talk to me like I can see," I told them. "Because I can, just not the way you do." We started coding day and night. Our goal was simple but impossible at the same time. Create a device that could describe the world to the blind in real time. We called it VisionLink. It wasn't magic. It was a small wearable camera paired with AI, a system that could recognize objects, read emotions, and translate everything into words. It would whisper things like, "There's a door 3 steps ahead. Someone is smiling at you. Your coffee is on the table." To most people that sounded boring. But to us, it was freedom. The first year was chaos. Half the prototypes overheated and caught fire. The AI called cats chairs, and chairs grandmas. Investors lost patience. The money started drying up. And one by one my interns quit. I remember the night the last one left. He said, "I'm sorry, man. Maybe some things just aren't meant to work." When the door shut, I sat in the dark, not that I'd notice, and whispered, "That's what they said about me too." For weeks I worked alone. Barely sleeping. Barely eating. There were moments when I doubted everything. When I'd think maybe they're right. Maybe the world doesn't want what I'm building. Then one evening I got an email from a woman named Clara. She wrote, "My son is 8 years old. He's blind. He wants to play outside like other kids. He wants to see the world somehow. Can your device help him?" I didn't even think. I wrote back, "It's not ready, but I'll make it ready." For 2 months I worked nonstop. I coded, tested, rebuilt, failed, and started again. I didn't care about investors or profits anymore. This was personal. Finally, I had something that worked. Not perfectly, but enough. When Clara and her son came to the lab, I was terrified. Not of failing, but of disappointing him. The boy's name was Eli. He had the same quiet determination I once had, that fire you can hear even when you can't see. I helped him put on the prototype. "Okay," I said, "just listen." He turned his head and the device spoke. "There's a red ball in front of you." He reached out, found it, and laughed. That sound, that single laugh, was worth more than every dollar I'd ever make. Clara cried. I tried not to. That day I realized, I wasn't just building tech. I was building light, in a world full of darkness. Word spread fast. Clara posted a video of Eli using VisionLink. It went viral overnight. Thousands of comments poured in from parents, teachers, and even doctors. Within a week, I had 50 emails from investors who'd ignored me before. Now they were begging to meet. By the end of that year, VisionLink had a full production line. We were shipping devices to over 20 countries. Schools for the blind started using it for education. And suddenly, I, the kid who used to bump into walls, was standing on a stage in front of hundreds, giving a speech about innovation through adversity. But success has a strange echo. It's loud on the outside but quiet inside. Late at night, I still sat alone in my apartment, the same one I'd lived in when I was broke. And even with millions in the bank, I still whispered to the darkness, "Are you proud of me now?" The truth? I wasn't sure who I was talking to, the world, my past, or the light I'd lost years ago. One day a journalist asked me, "If you could have your sight back, would you take it?" I thought for a long time before answering. "No," I said. Because I didn't need eyes to learn how to see. That line went viral too. But it wasn't meant to be profound, it was just honest. I learned something blindness had taught me better than any business book ever could. That vision isn't about what you see, it's about what you believe. 3 years after launching VisionLink, the world started calling me the blind billionaire. I hated that name. Not because of blind, but because of billionaire. Money was never the point. But headlines love numbers, not stories. They didn't see the sleepless nights, the voices I heard when I doubted myself, or the moments I still reached out into the dark hoping to touch the light I once knew. They didn't see the people who made it possible. Like Clara and Eli, who sent me a letter every year. The last one said, "Eli just started school without a cane. He told me, 'Mom, I don't need eyes. I've got vision.'" That letter stayed pinned to my desk. Because every time the pressure, the noise, and the world's expectations got too loud, I'd touch that paper and remember why I started. But the bigger we grew, the harder it got to stay human. Suddenly, it wasn't just me coding through the night, it was hundreds of employees, investors breathing down my neck, and media waiting for me to slip. Success is a strange beast. It feeds you and it eats you. There were days when I thought about quitting. When I sat in my quiet office the same way I did years ago, and wondered if I'd just built another kind of prison, this time made of glass and applause. Then one day my assistant came in. "There's a man here to see you," she said. "He says you used to serve together in rehab." That name hit me like a ghost from the past. Lucas. We were roommates back when I first lost my sight. He'd lost a leg in an accident. He was the one who taught me to laugh again. When he walked into my office, or rather limped in, I smiled. "Still alive, huh?" I said. He chuckled, "Barely." But I heard you're doing more than just surviving. We talked for hours. He told me about a veteran's home struggling to afford therapy equipment. They were losing funding and hope. That night I couldn't sleep, because I realized something brutal. I'd built a company to see, but somewhere along the way I'd stopped looking. The next morning I announced a new branch of VisionLink, Vision Human, a nonprofit dedicated to giving away free tech to hospitals, schools, and veterans who needed it most. My board hated the idea. They said it would kill profits. I said profits were never the point. And that day, for the first time in years, I felt free. Months passed. One afternoon, I got invited to speak at an event for people living with disabilities. I didn't want to go, not because of the crowd, but because I still hated being called a motivation. But I went anyway. When I stepped on stage, someone guided me to the mic. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me, waiting for words that would inspire. I took a deep breath and said quietly, "I don't want to inspire you. I want to remind you, you were never broken." The room went silent. You could feel people crying. Not from pity, but from truth. Because the truth is, I didn't rebuild my life despite losing my sight. I rebuilt it because of it. After the event, a small girl came up to me. Her hand was trembling as she placed something in my palm, a bracelet made of tiny beads. "It says hope," she whispered. "My brother's blind too. But he wants to be like you." I smiled. Not because I was proud, but because I understood. She didn't see a billionaire. She saw proof that darkness doesn't mean the end. That night I went home and sat by the window. I couldn't see the stars, but I knew they were there. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could see again. Not with my eyes, with my purpose. Years later, when people ask me about VisionLink, the awards, the fame, the money, I tell them this: the company didn't change the world. It changed me. Because every person we helped reminded me of a version of myself that once wanted to give up, but didn't. And if even one of them finds hope in the darkness, then losing my sight was the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't know if there's a moral to my story, but if you've made it this far, maybe you're searching for one. So here it is. The world may take your sight, your peace, your certainty, but it can never take your vision unless you give it away. And that, my friend, is how a blind man taught the world to see.